All right, everybody, welcome to today's personal development lesson. As always, I am your host, Joel Dunn. Today, we are going over how comeback is better than the setback. Because here's the thing that we know we're going to go through them. It's not a matter of if the setback happens, it's a matter of when. And here's the thing you are not defined by the fall. You're defined by the getting up part, getting back up. And that's the most important thing because everybody here is going to face a setback. And, that's not pessimism, it's just the actual truth. Because the question is, if it wasn't that way, and if life never knocked you down, the question is, what would happen? Would you be better? Would you grow? But that's the thing. The question that you have to figure out is when you get knocked down, what are you going to do? So here's the thing that I want to talk about today. Your setback is not the end of your story. It might just be the beginning of your best chapter. Because the comeback, if you fight for it, if you struggle to get back up, is always better than the setback was bad. So I'm not going to teach this from theory because of the fact that if you guys know our story, we have gone through the setback. I'm going to teach this from the things that have happened in my life. So there's three parts to this. There's the principle, there's what we went through, and then there's the application. So the first part is the principle. The comeback is always bigger than the setback. But only if you refuse to quit in the valley. Because here's the truth underneath the whole thing. A setback is an event. You've heard me say this before. The bad thing that happened to you is an event. Quitting is a decision. And those are two completely different things because life hands everyone setbacks. Job loss, failure, betrayal, a financial collapse that happens, seasons where everything is falling apart, and you don't get to choose when that setback comes. But you always have the choice whether you're going to stay knocked down. Because the setback is never the defining moment. It isn't. The response to it is. So think about it. Nobody tells a comeback story by talking about the fall. They talk about the rise. The fall is just the step or the bump in the road in the process. Comeback is the actual story because the failure is the setup for the rise in the story. The valley is the setup to climbing to the mountain peak. The rock bottom is the setup for where the rebuild of the story begins. And here's the part that most people miss when you're in the middle of that pain. And this was true for us. The setback is actually loading you with everything you'll need for the comeback. And I know because when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see that. It's hard to see what the valley teaches you that the mountaintop never could. Because valley teaches you who you really are. It teaches you and shows you who's really with you, who's got your back, who's in your corner. It builds a resilience that comfort never could build. And it gives you a story that will one day set other people free. Because rock bottom has a strange gift hidden inside of it. It is a solid foundation, if you let it, for you to build the rest of your life on. And you can't build high until you hit something solid to build on. Because sometimes that's exactly what the bottom is. That's why they call it the rock bottom. If you get to the rock, now you've got something to build on. But there's this, and hear me, none of that matters if you quit in the valley. The setback only becomes a setup for people who refuse to stay down. Think about it. It's the same valley, two different people. One quits and the valley becomes their grave. And the other digs in and the valley becomes their launch pad to the mountaintop. difference was never the setback. The difference is always the decision to go back up. You've heard me say it before. There are two people going through similar situations. Why does one come out ahead while the other one, their life goes down the wrong path? It's because the setback is an event. Staying down is a choice. And the comeback belongs to whoever refuses to quit it. Now, you guys have heard our story before. We went from bankruptcy and food lines to building a multi-million-dollar business in the network marketing space. And this is the thing I want you to hear, because I want to tell you where we've actually been. We were at that point. It was no fault of our own. We were doing all the things right. I mean, think about it. We were doing the businesses, we had the fitness franchises, we had the rental properties, everything was looking great. Then the economy collapsed out from under us. So what did everybody stop doing? Well, they stopped paying for gym memberships, they stopped going, and then they stopped paying for rent. And so we found ourselves upside down in all the things that we had. We were losing all the things. We were losing the franchises. We were losing the rental properties. We were standing in the food lines at church just so that we had enough money left over at the end of the month so that we didn't lose our house. And here's the thing that was real. Nobody saw what we were going through. Nobody thought that we were going through it. But the shame and the fear and the questions were still real. Because the weight at the bottom is huge. Because the lower you honestly go, the more weight it feels on your shoulder. You would go into the parking lot at the church and you would park far away, or you would park somewhere different and walk over, hoping that people wouldn't see you walking. And everybody's standing in that food line, kind of looking around and seeing if they recognize anybody. And you randomly hear certain people say things like, yeah, I'm here picking up food for my friend, because they didn't want to admit or let people know the things that they were going through. Because they didn't want people to know how bad it was for them. I remember people knocking on our doors, creditors calling, people showing up unannounced, getting a car repossessed from our driveway. Those times were so hard. Even in the midst of it, Stephanie and I looked at it, we were not made for this. We knew we were made for more. We knew that God had a big plan for us. And that was the thing. We were still looking. We may have been down in the valley, but we were looking for the way out. We weren't letting that situation, the things that were happening to us, define who we were, because we knew we were hard workers. We knew that we needed to find something, and God had a plan for us. We just didn't know what it was. And that's when God dropped the lap of this amazing business model into our lives, and we were able to take it and radically change the outcome. We were able to go and cause things to happen for us. Instead of just continuing to allow something to happen, we made the decision that we were going to move, we were going to choose, we were going to believe, and we drew a line in the sand and knew where we were going to go. But that didn't just make things magically happen. That's when the grind happens. That's when you start going into the messy middle, because the comeback is never instant. I would love to say that, overnight we joined It Works and the world changed and we were no longer having any issues. No, that was just the start. There was still daily disciplines. There were still things that we had to do. There was still daily rejection. There were still nights that we wanted to quit. But the consistency and the belief that we had, we knew that we could build on. It was something that we earned. We weren't lucky, because that's what made it repeatable for us. We were able to figure out how to duplicate, how to do the things, and the things that nobody saw in the years between being in the food lines to now the overnight success. It was the consistency of what we were doing every single day, even when there was no proof that it was working for us yet. And that's where it just basically comes into fruition. It wasn't 1 week of work, it wasn't 2 weeks of work, it was months and months and months and years of work before multiplication happened. And here's the thing, it was bigger than the setback. I don't tell you this story to impress you on how amazing we were, because it wasn't us, honestly. It was God. God put everything in front of us, and we did the work. And that's the thing. We were where some of you might be right now. And a comeback like that was available to us, and for us standing in the food lines, bankruptcy, losing everything with every reason and opportunity to quit, then guess what? A comeback is available for you too. So, how do you turn your setback into a comeback? It starts with today. And here's how you take this off of the training and apply it into your life. Because whatever valley you're in, or maybe the next one that shows up, here's what you do. First, you have to decide the setback doesn't get the final word. So if that's where you're at right now, make the decision we had to make. Your current circumstances are not your conclusion. It's not the final chapter. You are not in your final chapter right now. Draw that line that says this chapter is not the ending. I still have more chapters to write. And then two, this is one of the hardest things to do in the middle. When you're in the setback, find the lesson inside of it. Because honestly, every setback is teaching you something if you let it. Ask, what is this season trying to build in me? Is it resilience, humility, hunger? What is it that you're supposed to be learning? Don't waste the valley. Mine it for what it's going to give you. Because when you're in it, God is sometimes giving you an entire new community that you could be impacting. 3, do the right thing next, and then repeat. Because you don't climb a mountain all in one step. It's not an all at once thing. You climb out with one disciplined day at a time. So pick your next right action and take it. And then remind yourself to do it again tomorrow. Because comebacks are built on consistency and persistency, not in one heroic leap, not one magic bullet that's going to make everything better. Consistent digging in. Number 4, here's the thing that we talk about all the time, because you may feel that imposter syndrome. Borrow belief until you build your own. Because this is the thing, when you can't see the comeback yet, when you're in the setback, let someone who's been there believe in you and believe in your comeback for you. Because I tell you, it is possible because we lived it. Hold on to that until you get your own evidence. That's why we feel so strongly about sharing our story, because we went through it and came out the other side. And we can show you how you can go through it and get to the other side as well. And then number 5, remember this. Someone is watching your comeback. Frame it like this. Your comeback isn't just for you. Somebody in your life, whether it's your family, maybe your team or your kids, they need to watch you get back up. Because your rise from the ashes gives them permission to believe in their own. Because you don't have to climb out all at once. You just have to refuse to stay down and make the decision to take the next step. So here's the thing. We stood in the food line. We went through the bankruptcy. We went to the bottom so low that it almost seems like we couldn't see the way up. But we are standing here today as living proof that your comeback is better than the setback. Not because we're special, not because we got lucky, but because in the valley, we made one decision. We refused to stay down. And God honored that one decision and allowed it to change everything. So whatever you're facing right now, hear me. It's not the end of your story. It might just be the one step for your greatest chapter. You have to get up. You have to take the next step. And you have to refuse to quit in the setback. You have to refuse to quit in the valley. So whatever setback you're carrying right now, or maybe the next one that comes up, make the decision today that it doesn't get the final word. It's not your last chapter. And then take one step up and out of the valley this week. And then take another tomorrow. And then start rewriting your story. Start writing your comeback today. Because you are not defined by the fall. You are defined by the getting up. Because the setback is real. But your comeback is coming. Because God's going to use you to do bigger and better things. So go get back up. Guys, go out and make it an amazing day. Hope your week is as awesome as you are.